welcome here to the home of Jan Svaling's champion and Ferrari's biggest fan, as we are going to go to the final race. Before that, welcome Summer 2025 break, which of course is round 14, the Hungarian Grand Prix, which you can see, there to my right on that lovely personalized calendar. Of course, the Hungarian GP has switched the places with the Belgium Grand Prix, so there are some changes, but obviously we are all, very excited to be coming over here to Hungary, which is, the country where I saw my first ever Formula 1 race live when we were vacationing, me as a 7-8-year-old boy, obviously there at the Balaton Lake, and obviously seeing Michael Schumacher, chasing, I believe that was the Gerhard Berger who won at the Hockenheimring at the time. So over here, we definitely, there's plenty of history now. This, of course, being quite a revolutionary race, so to speak. The first race held behind the Iron Curtain all the way since 1996, and Hungary has done a great job over here extending the contract, so they are due to have at least 45 years of Formula 1 racing. Something to be behold, to be honest. Despite the fact that the track has faced some severe criticism over the years, it's kind of been dampened by the DRS activation zones that we will show you on the speed of a Scuderia Red Retina iMac, which allowed the overtaking to occur more gradually, especially since 2011. We will also give you a little bit of a highlight of how to race this very special track, especially if you are gonna be racing with the SF1000 TN18 Formula 1 racing simulator produced obviously by Trustmasters for Scuderia Ferrari. We will then take a look at the again wonderful history, of course, that Scuderia Ferrari has over here in Hungary, which might maybe surprise you a little bit. We will also talk about for example how well we have done over here, meaning me, Jan the Svaling's champion, who's known pretty much for always planting it here on the pole position. And you actually could have already seen that Hungarian race taking place obviously, just last week when I was, basically racing it as the round 13 of that congruent, the 2024 Formula 1 Championship that I'm doing as the season progresses. So actually what that means is that for this weekend, we will start with this race introduction that this time is filmed very close to the beginning of the Hungarian GP weekend. So we will be, in on all the latest news. So we won't miss, for example, the Red Bulls, firing, after 20 years, their principal Christian Horner, which was obviously that big news, that happened, right after, we recorded the Belgium Grand Prix race introduction. So we will tell you a little bit also, about the news, and obviously as Scuderia Ferrari, how well we competed here, how well I competed here, and we will take a look at the drivers and the constructors championships and what we expect as we will be racing with this F125 Scuderia Polo. So definitely let me know how you like it, and maybe perhaps we can start with the news over here. So for the news, not much really to tell you. I guess everybody's expected to keep their seats. We will have the same people pretty much leading the teams, but a lot can change over the summer break. Obviously, the whole weekend will start on Friday, August 1st. So this is gonna be the first race in August 2025, and then right at the end of the August, as you can see on that calendar, we will then have the Dutch GP. So there will be a really significant break, obviously, of this should be 25 days. And during that, obviously, a lot can happen, especially as the new regulations, are coming in. There is also this cryptic post posted by Lewis Hamilton for the 8th of August. So obviously, 8, like it depends. In many countries, it could mean different things. For example, here in Taiwan, of course, it means Happy Father's Day. Surprisingly, it is not the third Sunday in June. But for example, Lewis Hamilton chasing that 8th title, it will be interesting to see what announcement he has. Some people are predicting that he's just gonna give up. I don't think so. I definitely think that Lewis wanna see what is gonna happen with the brand new regulations in 2026. But again, I have to say that so far, the season for us as Scuderia Ferrari has been slightly disappointing for many different reasons. So we will definitely highlight what exactly happened there. Why is that so? As for the news, not much to tell you, but we have to say, the Belgium GP, obviously, it's been, a great race, a lot of racing action in the great race, I should say, for the first 15 laps. Once it stabilizes, then it was a little bit like a sprint, not much overtaking, which might not be the case here in Hungary, because it does feature some heavy braking zones, but again, qualifying will be very crucial. Sometimes, like on the Ferrari.com website that you will see just in a couple of minutes, they call it the Monaco without the boats, and that is really true, because once you get pretty much to turn 5 all the way to turn 14, so basically for almost 10 turns, there's hardly any overtaking opportunity. But I have to say, over the years, I've come to appreciate the challenge that it poses. It really is sometimes like a go-kart track, but if you are really able to extract the most out of, for example, that middle sector, it will put you on pole position, which surprisingly I've always been on pole position here, despite the fact that I've never actually, dominated the qualifying. So, some fantastic results by Jan, the Smiling Sun champion here in Hungary. Maybe it could have been because obviously in all of the seasons, I really gelled in with the car and produced a top performance. This is still, the second closest circuit to, the place where I was born. Even though we've never been there, I think, if you go to see the race in Hungary, I wouldn't say it's affordable, because nowadays not most of the races are affordable. But what is great about it is that it does feature some amusement parks in and around. That's why, for example, we love coming to the Yas Marina, because there is a Ferrari world, right? You can do the go-karts, you can actually race the real, for example, Formula 2 cars or Formula 3 cars. Here, what you can do is you can go to the water park, and, if it's not going to be raining, which is a possibility in Hungary, if it's going to be scorching hot with over 30 degrees Celsius, there's hardly any better place to cool down and start the summer in style. So, for the news, again, not much to tell you, but I have to say, when the Belgium Grand Prix finished, you could have noticed lots of very interesting statistics. For example, the fact that the championship leader's race number, 81, right? So, as you know, Oscar Piastri races with 81, is now the difference in points between him and the reigning 4-time, as I will also be very soon 4-time. I definitely, am on course of achieving that Formula 1 World Champion. And so that is the difference now between, obviously, Piastri and Verstappen. So, quite interesting, that you have, that. But what was even more telling was, and you probably could have told that, the McLarens have scored 1-2, but it was Piastri winning from Norris and Leclerc scoring the 3rd place. This was the 8th victory of the career for Piastri. Quite incredible that he has broken his duck in rather unconventional fashion when Norris let him go to go for his first win here in Hungary. 24 races later, he's won 1/3 of the races, and this was his 8th win, just like it was his teammate Norris's win. But for our very own Charles Leclerc, he is still also on 8 race victories only. It doesn't seem, plausible. Basically, entered Formula 1 in 2018, and in 8 years scored 8 race victories. You would think like it's more like 24, which would be much closer to his pole position count. But what's even more impressive is that, so every podium finisher in Belgium had 8 Grand Prix victories. What's even more is that the Jackie Ig, who is obviously a former Ferrari driver, who probably shouldn't have won the 1970 championship because due to obviously that it was supposed humorously, awarded to Jochen Rindt, who obviously died in Monza, at our favorite circuit of the calendar. So obviously he has won the championship, even though he's never got to celebrate it. But Ig finished 2nd, and obviously, he was a, really important, driver for Scuderia Ferrari, who's also managed to win, believe it or not, 8 Grand Prix, right? So as he waved the checkered flag, it was all about 8 there in Belgium, right? Something that, for example, Michael Schumacher wanted to achieve, winning 8 times in Belgium, and our childhood hero, and Lewis Hamilton, obviously, going for that 8th title. So stay close for that announcement on August 8th. So this would be about the news. Now let's take a look at the track, how it looks like, and how successful we were. So over here, we will turn this beautiful Scuderia Red Retina iMac around. We love to show it to you over here. And yes, everybody, we can take a look at the track. Okay, so it's a bit far for me. Okay, I hope you guys can still see it just fine. This is how it looks like, right? So you can see that it does feature this very, very long straight, and obviously here you have a great braking zone. They raise the curbs a little bit, especially on the inner side, so you gotta really get a good line, hit the apex just right over here, as you will then go to the second DRS zone. But here the braking is obviously from about 7th gear to the 3rd, 4th gear, so not so easy to overtake, into the second turn. But obviously, you kind of want to manage it, because then, you're going through turns 3, turn 4, the blind corner. Definitely do check out the hot lap and the new F125 hot lap, how to tackle it. You really have to be on a limit. And as you then go, through turn 5, there is still an opportunity to get stuck behind, the rear wing of your opponent, and then outbrake them into the first proper chicane that we have over here. And that would all be happening right in front of the water park goers, because the water park is then located over here on this side, and you can also see the Formula 1 action from there. And then, starts that sort of Mickey Mouse section, which mostly resembles like a go-kart, because it basically has a turn, then a very short burst of speed, and turn left, turn right. So this is where the name Mickey Mouse really comes from. There used to be the DRS zone over here, but I believe it is not anymore. It is then obviously very important to get the two 180-degree corners. They are not really hairpins, but quite a challenging corners to get right. That can really help you, to deliver some magnificent, time in Hungary. And so far, in qualifying, I've always managed that. So this is how the track looks like, and obviously we will describe it in great detail in the hot laps. You can see it is on the calendar since 1986. Usually it's around over 70 laps, giving you the race distance of slightly over 300 kilometers. And you can see that obviously none other than Lewis Hamilton holds the race record or lap record of 1 minute 16.627, which I'm sure the cars will be absolutely planted over here. Not sure about the F125 simulation, as that's being made a little bit slower, but that definitely we will see if that record survives. Wouldn't it be great if Lewis himself has actually managed to improve on it? So here is exactly how successful we were as Scuderia Ferrari. So Michael Schumacher, obviously our childhood hero, he's been really successful over here in terms of pole positions, gotten 6 of them. As Scuderia Ferrari, we've gotten 8 pole positions. You can see, 7 Grand Prix victories, most recently, obviously, courtesy of Vettel. So we will really be hoping, to again, win here. We haven't won here for quite a while. Mostly, Michael Schumacher was really, really strong over here. That's where most of the victories come from. 9 fastest laps, 26 podiums. So maybe not as many as you would expect, but this track potentially could suit us. Again, we were very, very strong in Monaco, and this, apart from that long straight, is similar to Monaco, and we will see how the upgrades will help us to especially take the fight to the orange cars, because the red cars look better and definitely should be faster. And if we can take that fight to the McLarens, I do believe we could be in for a hell of a second half of the season. So yes, this would be obviously about the Hungary. And over here we can take a look at the competitors and how the table looks like, right? So you could already see it obviously in the race reaction to the Belgian Grand Prix. This is the 2025, the Drivers' Championship as it looks at the moment. So Oscar Piastri leading with 266 points. You can see exactly 81 points ahead of Max Verstappen, who obviously is aiming to achieve what only Michael Schumacher achieved, which is to win 5 Formula 1 drivers' titles on the row. And I'm really happy that it looks like that won't be happening. Second is Lando Norris on, I believe, 200, that should be on 250 points. Yes, hard to see it. And yes, Max Verstappen is third on 185 points. Now here, if we then go down, so for George Russell, Mercedes, he is really our target, 157 points. Mercedes, clearly taking wrong turn with the development. Now we are clearly, definitely second, maybe even the fastest cars. And Charles Leclerc, who is fifth on 139 points, has a chance, of course, mathematically 18 points is actually quite a lot. This is not a sprint weekend. to overtake. But if Leclerc could head into the summer break being fourth in the championship, that would be really fantastic. Given where we started. Sixth is Lewis Hamilton for Ferrari, 109 points, and Lewis has always been very strong here in Hungary, and we hope that Hamilton could get our first Grand Prix podium. Of course, we had Leclerc being on 4 podiums in the Grand Prix, Hamilton on 2 sprint podiums, and it's important to pick up the trophies, but especially to really at least qualify or get ahead of the McLarens, which could definitely be the case, for example, at the start. Remember what Felipe Massa did, for example, to Hamilton in 2008, right? And then you can, really, take the fight to the cars, because sometimes one race is all it takes, just like last season, for example, to swing the pendulum, so to speak. 7 is Andrea Kimi Antonelli for Mercedes, 63 points, and being a little bit low, obviously, on confidence. So, yeah, will be interesting, what he can do. It's funny that my family supports him, because the girlfriend comes from where my family comes from. And then 8, Alexander Albon, Williams, 54 points. We definitely do not want to be finishing behind him for the second race running. 9, Nico Hülkenberg, Kick Sauber, 37 points. We were happy not to finish behind him for the second race running. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. 10, Esteban Ocon Haas, 27 points. 11, Isaac Hadjar, Racing Bulls, 22 points. 12 is then Pierre Gasly, Alpine, 20 points. Quite interesting that he can score so many points. And if Alpine would have that second scorer of the points, definitely, they would have been, able to make that fight for the last or 6th in the championship. Very, very exciting, because it's ever so close. 13 is then Lance Stroll, Aston Martin, 20 points. 14, we have Liam Lawson, did very well for Racing Bulls with the right time pit stop. He's on 16 points. 15, Fernando Alonso, Aston Martin, 16 points. He's definitely eyeing that 11th place, or wanna get into the top 10. But yeah, is that Aston Martin gonna even be competitive in 2025? Then we have 16, Carlos Sainz Williams. You guessed it, 16 points. It's funny that Sainz is often 13 with 13 points, 14 with 14 points, or 15 with 15 points. Yeah, this is a disaster of a season for Carlos Sainz, former Ferrari driver, and he's really gonna have some breakthrough performance or result very soon. And it's even more terrible for 17, Yuki Tsunoda, Red Bull Racing, 10 points. What does his future hold? I mean, he's not scoring any points for Red Bull. I'm not sure, who else would take him, because look at this. 18 is then Oliver Berman has 8 points. Obviously, he's gotten a few more points from the sprint, and Tsunoda could very soon, because also Gabriel Bortoleto, the reigning F2 champion, is 19 for Kick Sauber, 6 points. Tsunoda could soon be 19 in a standing in a Red Bull. Wow. And that's all I can say. 28, Franco Colapinto, Alpine, 0 points. Can he get the first points for Alpine? He really should. And 21st is then Jack Doohan, Alpine. He won't be competing. He's on 0 points. So this is how the top 3 looks like over here. Let's take a look at the Constructors' Championship. So McLaren leading with 516 points. We are second, obviously, on 248 points. And we definitely, want to be aiming to, finally, it would be great to win the race. It would provide for a very happy summer break. Third is Mercedes with 220 points. Fourth, Red Bull, mostly courtesy of Verstappen's points on 192 points. Fifth, Williams, 70 points. Sixth, Kick Sauber, 43 points, going from 10 to 6. That would be a massive boost for the team that's to become Audi next year. 7, Racing Bulls, 41 points. 8, Aston Martin, 36 points. 9, Haas, 35 points. You can see it's ever so close. 10, Alpine, 20 points. Despite the fact that they are the last, they've already scored 5 times more points than what the slowest team, the last team in the standings, which obviously was Kick Sauber, achieved last season. So this was the Constructors table, Drivers table, and here is the Hungarian, right? So over here, we will see, how the race goes. Obviously you've, already seen, just how wonderfully strong I am over here. So scoring 4 before I started this season, now 5 pole positions out of the 5 tries. I cannot believe, that I'm actually so successful over here in qualifying, even though obviously scoring my 4th, victory here in Hungary, obviously, feels great. But I have to say, we only got, I believe, 3 fastest laps. So, overall, when we started, we had 4 pole positions, 3 wins, and 2 fastest laps, basically, this track, I've been, pretty much lucky, as you've seen, in the round 13 of the 2024, championship, that Verstappen retired. Otherwise, that would be a second place. But overall, I've always done ever so well here. But you've already seen that. So due to the scheduling, the Belgium Grand Prix was on the sprint last year. So you will then see the Belgium qualifying and obviously the race, as I'm aiming over here at the track, where Michael Schumacher obviously called it his favorite track, to equal his best ever start to the season, which would be 13 out of 14 Grand Prix. So, definitely it's going well on my front, as we as Scuderia Ferrari are leading the championship and chasing the titles. So definitely stay tuned for that, as the real qualifying and the Grand Prix will be taking place here in Hungary. I'm sure you guys will enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed this race introduction over here from our home sweet home. This was Jan, the Smiling Sun champion, and all I can say is I can't wait for this round 14 of the championship to start and to see, how we can make another step forward and finally put both cars on the podium and start winning, so we can play the national anthem of Italy and be celebrating with the shiny Formula 1 Grand Prix winner trophy and the Formula 1 Grand Prix winner medal. Let's go, Forza Ferrari!